Hola, hola, amigas. Welcome to another episode of Modern Latina in Midlife podcast, where we peel back the layers that have been placed on us our entire life, reawaken the spark inside, and explore the paths that lead us to deeper, more authentic living. I'm Sonia Flores, transformational coach, energy healer, spiritual medium, and your host. Today, I'm diving into a topic that is really close to my heart and honestly, I feel really crucial to our journey: healing the inner child to quickly manifest your dreams. Whether you're new here or a returning listener, I am thrilled to share this space with you. So let's get started. The concept of the inner child is more than just psychological theory. It's a gateway to understanding the core of who you are. Your inner child holds the key to your spontaneous joy, creativity, and intuition. But for many of us, this part of our psyche is wounded due to past traumas and unmet needs. Actually, not too many of us. We all have wounded parts of our child and wounded shadows and blocks due to our past traumas and unmet needs. Today, I'm exploring how healing these wounds can accelerate our ability to manifest our dreams very quickly. This is a tool that I use to bring in manifestations. It is at the core of what I help my clients with. And it is by far my favorite thing to talk about and work on right now. So let's get started. As we dive deeper into today's topic, it's essential that we start at the foundation. What is the inner child? So let's start there. The inner child represents the part of our psyche that still harbors your earliest experiences, emotions, memories, and sensations from your childhood. It is formed within years 0 to approximately 6 years old. It's a presence, a memory store of sorts that influences how we react to the world around us today. Your inner child holds all the experiences, thoughts, beliefs, patterns, habits that you formed in childhood in response to what was happening around you. During this time frame, we absorb everything we hear, observe, or experience as truth. When you were born with an openness in which you approach the world with joy in the small things. There was no right or wrong, no good or bad. It just was. And as we start to ask for the things that we need and the things that we want, we start to give meaning to the way in which our caregivers reacted to those requests. We start to interpret the way in which our caregivers behaved. And because they are our caregivers, our parents, for most of us, we want their love and acceptance. They are all we know. They feed us and they protect us and they provide for us. So we want their acceptance, their love, their protection, and we want to make them happy. So as children, as babies even, we start to do things and behave in ways to earn that acceptance, love, and protection. And we do this unconsciously, of course. This is just something that we just learn to do. And when we see that, when we see what works, when we gain our parents or our caregivers acceptance, we repeat that. This creates a pattern and a habit that we then take with us to navigate the rest of our life with. When we hear the messages we receive from our parents, either through their words or through physical cues, we start to take those in as beliefs. For example, if you're constantly told you need to bring home better grades, maybe they compare you to your siblings who bring home 4.0s and above, and you're somewhere between 3.0 and 4.0, you start to feel not good enough. And boy, you will absorb that as truth and run with it for the rest of your life. This becomes a limiting belief that you're not good enough. And you're constantly striving to perfection, and you're constantly driving yourself to the ground to try to achieve that perfectionism. in order to make your parents happy and to live up to that expectation, to live up to what your siblings are doing, right? But it happens not only with our parents, it also happens with our friends. I had a client once who was having trouble showing up on social media to share her new spiritual business. We did some inner child work around it and discovered that when she was around 11 and 12, she was talking about astrology and this witchy side of things at school with her friends. And they started making fun of her. She very quickly learned to shut that side of her down and not talk about it again in fear of uh, of not fitting in with her friends and being made fun of. So she developed this limiting belief of I'm not safe if I speak up. So she dimmed her light when it came to sharing her gifts, her spiritual gifts, which were a little unconventional. Today, these topics are a little bit more mainstream, so a little bit more well accepted. Now, yes, this is over the age of 7. She was around 11 or 12. There was probably an instance earlier in her life where this belief was formed. This instance with her friend at the age of 11 was reinforcement for something that was formed earlier in her life. If she had formed a belief around voicing herself and being safe to do so early in life, she would have reacted differently to those mean girls. And there were probably a series of reinforcing events throughout her life in early childhood and early adolescence that kept solidifying that limiting belief as truth in her subconscious. So, this is a brief example of how a limiting belief or pattern is created. And when we take this with us for the rest of our life and make all our decisions, reactions, behaviors, habits, and patterns from these experiences in childhood, this creates our personality. This creates how we show up in the world. And this is where inner child work or inner child healing is important in breaking these beliefs, patterns, and habits. For this particular client, she was sabotaging herself. She has an audience on social media from other work she does that is more well accepted. She's a model and an actress in LA. So she has a platform. And she was starting something new, or really starting to share her intuitive and healing gifts again. But she was holding herself back from showing up on social media. Once we did inner child work, we arrived at that scene in middle school, which then explained to her why she was holding herself back. She was having fear of showing up and being made fun of and not fitting in. It is likely that this core wound of it's not safe for me to speak up was likely showing up in many other areas of her life, whether it was personal, career, relationships, etc. This dynamic prevents us all from showing up authentically and presenting ourselves as our true self. So let's connect the dots between the inner child healing and manifestation. Let's first start by acknowledging that many people in the manifestation field talk about manifesting by staying in high vibe, by getting yourself in the energy frequency of your desires so that you can attract them. I hear many of them talking about staying positive and not letting the negative thoughts take over. So there's a ton of spiritual bypassing going on out there around the high vibes only concept. I don't like it. It's not real, it's not sustainable. It doesn't dive to the core wounds of why we're on that frequency to begin with. And I also have worked with a manifestation coach who does mention reprogramming limiting beliefs and that you have around manifestations. And her answer is to write affirmations, to say affirmations over and over again. While I do believe that affirmations are great, and I personally believe that it takes a heck of a lot of repeating these affirmations for your limiting beliefs to completely be reprogrammed. And if those limiting beliefs are really deeply rooted, you have a lot of supporting events in life that have reinforced them, the more difficult it will be to reprogram them. And then we also have generational wounds and past life traumas to consider if we really want to capture the full scope of what is possible. But for the sake of this episode, we will stick to inner child wounds only. So when we take the time to heal our inner child wounds, we unblock that part of us that is keeping us from showing up authentically and in the frequency of that manifestation. It prevents us from showing up in full self worth, truly believing that we are worthy of that manifestation. If there is a piece of us that doesn't believe that we deserve it, that we're worthy of it, we won't bring it in. You'll notice when you do deep inner child work, you will start to see manifestations coming in that you've been trying to call in. Maybe even that you've given up on or lost hope over. I also want to mention that it is not just a one and done. You don't heal your inner child wound in just one session. The inner child needs constant reparenting, nurturing, and reassurance, especially if you have never done inner child work or you've never connected with your inner child or haven't connected with your inner child in a long time. She's going to need to learn to trust you again. She might be upset with you for not checking in with her. So it will require some work. And if this is a really deeply rooted wound, you'll need to come back at it several times and from different angles. You'll need to address it several times. The more inner child work you do around a limiting belief or wound, the more memories of reinforcements will start to come up for you that you can heal in that moment and reparent your inner child. Okay, well, this all sounds great, right? So, how do we do this? When it comes to manifesting something big, I like to reverse engineer it. And these are the steps to healing the inner child wounds to manifest your desires that I like to take my clients through, and that, frankly, that I take for myself. So, step one is to identify your manifestation or manifestations. Get clear on what you want this manifestation to feel like. So, this is step two. Get clear on what you want this manifestation to feel like. What is the feeling that you want to evoke? For example, if you're trying to manifest a successful spiritual business, get clear on how you want to feel. At peace, no stress, because financially you will feel secured, joyful, love, accomplished, fulfilled because of how you're helping your clients with their struggles, etc. Get clear on what that will feel like to have a successful spiritual business. Step three, get clear on your why. Why do you want this manifestation? If you're trying to replace your 9 to 5 income with your spiritual business, get clear on that. I want a spiritual business because it lights me up. It makes me feel happy. It feels good on my body. If I can make a full time income with this spiritual business, I will feel able to leave my stressful job. I can make my own schedule. I can create my own ecosystem and company values and choose who I want to work with. I will be able to provide for myself on my own, or I will be able to provide for my children and their activities. Dig deep into your why. Go down to the core. I'll be able to provide food and shelter for myself and for my kids. Just go really deep there. Step four, then let go of how you will make it happen. Trust in your why and how you want it to feel. Surrender to the universe or to God or to your higher self to bring in the manifestation in the best way possible, as long as it fulfills your feelings and your why. So maybe it doesn't show up as your own spiritual business. Maybe it shows up as somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, do you want to be my partner in this business or in this endeavor?" And it's spiritually healing based, and it fulfills your how you want to feel, and it fulfills the why, and it fulfills the income that you need. So maybe it looks a little bit different. So this is what I mean by letting go of the how is this going to happen? What is it really going to look like? You may have an idea because of the the skills and the gifts that you want to use and how you want to show up in this business, but it could look a little bit different than how you're imagining it to look like. So then we go to step 5. Then you're going to identify the block that is keeping you stuck, keeping you from manifesting this desire. You're going to think about what is holding you back right now in the present moment from bringing in the manifestation. You're going to need to sit in meditation about this and get really grounded for this. You're going to bring up that manifestation, and this is how it looks like in practical terms. You're going to bring up that manifestation. And I want you to take a moment to get into meditation, quiet your mind, get really grounded, feel your feet on the ground. And I invite you to close your eyes, because for me, this is just the best way to like get in that moment and get in the present and just feel really grounded. And I'm going to ask that you drop into your body. So envision yourself kind of like rolling your eyes back and then closing them, and imagine yourself dropping into your body, into your abdomen, and looking outside, looking to the outside through your abdomen as if you're sitting inside your body. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because I want you to get out of your mind. I want you to drop out of your mind. Get inside your body. And then I want you to imagine the scan going through your body, starting from the top of your crown all the way down, slowly, slowly, slowly scanning your body through your face, down through your neck, down to your chest, your abdomen, all the way down to your feet. I want you to envision this body scan happening, and keep that manifestation in mind as you're doing this. Where do you feel a block? Where do you feel that body scan stop? This is a block. This is where that block is that is keeping you from manifesting. Okay. So once you identify where this block is, we're going to move on to step 6. This is where you're going to start to talk to this part. Okay. You're going to get curious with it. You're going to ask a lot of questions. Okay. First of all, I want you to identify, okay, what does it look like? Does it look like a big cloud? Does it look like a red block? Does it look like a brick? Does it look like a shield? I mean, I have had people say all sorts of things. Sometimes it shows up as a fence. Sometimes it shows up as a wall. Sometimes it shows up as rocks. Sometimes it shows up as a lion. Like, what does it show up as? What does it look like? If it doesn't look like, and it's that first thing that comes to your mind, you'll be surprised. It'll surprise you that you'll be like, oh my gosh, I think it looks like this square. Okay, is it heavy? Does it have a temperature? Does it have a sound? Does it move? So identify what that looks like, and then say hello to it. Ask it, ask it how old it is, or how old do you think it is in that moment? Just what comes to mind. If an age doesn't come to mind, ask it how old it is, and start to have that conversation. It'll often give you an age like 16 maybe, or 20 or 30s, whatever it is, and ask it, and just acknowledge it and say, okay, great. What are you doing? What is your purpose? And then it'll tell you if it's trying to protect you from something. It'll answer you. It'll start to answer you. Let's say it's saying that it wants to protect you. Great. What do you want to protect me from? And then it'll answer, and keep asking deeper questions. When did you start to feel this way? How long have you been protecting me for? Since what age have you been protecting me from? Oh, okay, you're protecting me from being made fun of. Okay. When was the first time you felt made fun of? And it'll start to take you to a younger age and a younger age, and do that until it takes you to somewhere between 0 to 6 years old. And then tell it, thank you so much. Every time it answers you, thank it. When you get to that 0 to 6, that is your inner child you're talking to. And thank it every time it answers you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for letting me know that. And then thank it for the job that it's been doing. Tell it, thank you so much for protecting me all these years. You were absolutely in the right to feel like you needed to protect me, and you have done an amazing job. You did a great job. Thank you. I I I needed you in that moment, but I don't need that anymore. And let it know how old you are today. But leave pauses in between. Allow that inner child to respond. Take a note of how they respond, their body language, what they say to you. They'll often feel surprised to know how old you are. And let it know that, but I got this now. I'm older now. And let it know what you've accomplished in life. I have a degree. I have a degree. I have a business. I have these wonderful gifts, which you've known of from a very young age. And I'm using these now to heal people or to help people or to do whatever it is that you do. And explain to them, I need to, let's say, show up on social media and share these gifts. And it's actually really well accepted now by a lot of people. It's becoming more mainstream. And for those people that don't believe, it's okay. They'll come around to it. There's this whole shift happening in the world. This paradigm is shifting, and slowly everybody's starting to awaken. Thank you so much for being here, to protect me all these years. And so have that conversation and validate that inner child. Validate them. They want to feel validated. In fact, give that child, that inner child, what you truly needed at that age from your parents or your caregivers. Tell them what you would have wanted to hear. And then ask them, what do you need from me? And they may tell you, I need to trust you. I need to know everything's going to be okay. And then reassure them, reparent them basically, and tell them, give them what they need. Sometimes they'll say, I want a hug. Great, give them a hug. What else do you need from me right now? And just give that to them if you can. And then say, okay, I'm going to go back to 2024 and I need to start sharing, and we're going to be good and we're going to be safe. And then you can even ask it if it wants to come back, if this inner child, if she wants to come back with you to 2024, or if they want to stay there. And then they might ask you if you can come back and visit and check in with them, and ask them how often do they need you to check in with them, and come back and do it. Check in with that inner child a few times a week. Hey, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And check in with what's coming up. If you find yourself again stalling from, in this example of showing up on social media to share about your gifts, go back and check in with that inner child, like, hey, what's going on here? I need to do this, remember? Let's do it together. Everything's gonna be safe. And then maybe show them, and share with them maybe some testimonials of how you've helped people, or how what you have shared has resonated in the past. Show them proof and tell them, hey, it's okay to let that go. I got it from here. You go be a child. You go play and do fun things. Get creative. So then you do that. That was step 6. And step 7 is to check in with it daily, or at a bare minimum a few times a week. Check in with that child, with that block. And one thing you'll notice, I want you to notice when you're doing this inner child work, that's what inner child work is. What I just walked you through. When you do that, pay attention to what happens to that part. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it breaks up. Sometimes it just like goes up and fumes and goes away. Sometimes it eases and gets smaller. And then the more you do it, you'll see it disappear. That's what I mean by removing blocks that are keeping you stuck. This is how we peel back the layers. It's by removing one of these blocks at a time. We have many. And this block might show up again. So you may have to go in and do it again several times until it is completely reprogrammed and disappears for good. It may never disappear for good. It just may be something that you need to work on regularly. But once you come in and hit it from different angles and hit it different times, and you'll notice that each time you go in and do this work, you might remember a different memory that reinforced that limiting belief or that pattern. Something new will come up and hit it from that angle, work on it from that angle, and work on it more and work on it more until you've worked on it from several angles. So, this is one way of doing inner child work. There are other ways to do it, but this is how I like to work with my clients. And of course, if we're having trouble connecting or doing the healing, there are other techniques that you can add to that, like inner child like work, like not inner child work, like playing like a child, doing the things that interested you as a child, whether it's coloring or being creative or going out and roller skating or going out and getting an ice cream, the things that your child that you used to love to do, engage in those things again. That nurtures your inner child. So that's just a little extra tip that I like to add, to give as homework to my clients when I'm working with them, when it comes to inner child healing. So once you fully unblock it and heal that inner child wound, you will see that your manifestations come through. And if you are truly diligent, they will come through fast. What happens is that because you heal that wound, you are able to show up differently. You are able to show up without that limiting belief. You're able to show up um, with different habits, creating different patterns. So you show up acting differently. So you're no longer going to come in behaving and show up every day in everyday life in that lower self-worth level. You will show up at a higher self-worth, and you will show up, you will magnetize that frequency. You will show up at a different frequency, at a different level. So you're going to call in manifestations, and manifestations that you're calling in, they're going to find themselves to you easier because you're showing up differently. You're taking different action. Maybe you're showing up on social media and sharing your gifts and sharing about your services, whereas before you couldn't show up to do it. So, how in the hell were clients going to arrive? Now you're showing up and you're talking about it. And maybe you meet people at a party and you talk about it more easily because you're able to show up. So, it's not that things show up magically, it's just that you show up differently. So, yes, that brings in a different frequency, but it also happens through inspired action because you have a different level of self-worth. You're showing up differently and taking inspired action that you previously would not have been able to take. When I came across this and discovered this was about almost a year ago. This was last November, towards the end of November, through the month of December. I decided to intentionally work on manifestation. So I set a list of 3 manifestations that I was working on. One was a pretty big one where I wanted to increase my income by 33%. I wanted to manifest a trip. I wanted to manifest a free flight. I wanted to manifest the Airbnb to be under $500. And I wanted to manifest the spending money for this trip. And then the third thing that I was calling in was to not have an increase in rent. So I like to call it habit. It's kind of like a habit stacking concept. I use this kind of manifestation stacking technique where I have several manifestations that I'm working on, but not too many. One big one for me was that increase in income, and then two not small ones, but relatively significant ones for me as well. So I call it manifestation stacking. And so I had my manifestations listed. And what I started to do was I wrote down my list of, okay, how do I want to feel? And I did that mostly working on increasing the income. Okay. The other two were just kind of coming along for the ride, the other two manifestations. So I worked on increasing my income. So I thought, okay, how do I want to feel when this manifestation comes through? And it was the manifestation. I wanted to bring it in, in coaching and in guiding and working and creating transformation and, in this coaching field, not necessarily in my other business that I have, which is podcast production and a VA, agency. I wanted to do it in coaching. So I wrote a list down of, okay, how do I want to feel? I want to create transformation. I want to coach. I want to guide. I want to lead. So I wrote all of that down in detail. And then I wrote down my why. Why do I want this 33% increase? Why do I want to coach? And I wrote it down to the basics, because I will be less stressed. I will be able to provide, and I will feel so much more at ease and at peace to be able to get creative, to be, and I just wrote all that down from like my heart. I just wrote it down from my heart, like in meditation almost, just like wrote it down and just got really detailed to my why. I want to provide for my sons, and I want to do these things, and I want to be able to invest, and why do I want to invest? And I wrote that all down. It was like 2 pages of journaling, really. And then my spirit guides, I heard this voice say, okay, so does it have to happen in one-on-one coaching? Which is how I was envisioning it. And in that moment I thought, no, it doesn't. So I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go of how, as long as it fulfills this feeling, as long as it fulfills this why, I, it doesn't matter how it comes in or what the final um, product looks like. Okay. And so I let it go. I let it go in that moment, and it felt so good to let it go for the first time. I'm like, yeah, I surrender. I let it go. And then, and of course, I didn't do this in one sitting. This can require a lot of work if you really are diving deep, but you can do it in a day, or a couple of hours if you have the time and the energy to do it. So then I sat down to do the manifestation and dive deep into my body, and okay, felt that block of where am I feeling this block? And I did that several times. I did it. In fact, I tried to work on it every single day for a month. Every single day, I would sit in with this feeling of low self-worth, with this block that was keeping me from manifesting the things that I wanted. And I worked on it, and I worked on it, and I would meditate every day, and I call that inner child work meditation. I would go in and check in on that block and hit it from an angle and hit it from another, and it just kept bringing up more memories and more memories and more memories that kept reinforcing that. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy. It's not easy because you start remembering all these things, and it's hard to remember those things because they created these wounds in us, and they created these limiting beliefs, and it's hurtful and also beautiful to see where that was created. And you go in and you do that deep work. When you become aware of it, the awareness alone starts to heal it. So then when you reparent it and you validate it and you reprogram it and you give it new beliefs, maybe that in order to reprogram that inner child and let that inner child that everything's okay, this is where the affirmations come in. You give it affirmations. I am worthy. We are worthy of this manifestation. We are worthy of earning more money because we create beautiful transformation for people. This is an energy exchange. So you program that child and validate it by also giving those new beliefs and affirmations. And this is where those affirmations, I feel, come in and come in handy and are very useful. Whereas if you just go, okay, I feel like I'm not worthy, and here's some affirmations, and boom, 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 repeat, 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 that's surface level. That's spiritual bypassing. You got to dive deep into your core wounds, into those shadows, into those blocks, and reprogram that inner child. And once you dive deep, then you can feed those affirmations, and then they will be, they will have they will be more effective, basically. So I did that for about a month. And and then part of this, I also did an extra step that where I created a list of, expanders. This is proof outside of myself that showed me that doing something like this was possible. Well, has somebody else done it? Of course. Who has done this? Who has increased their income? Who has, made income in coaching and in guiding others and creating transformation? And I made a list of those people, and these are called expanders. So I did that as part of my, my inner child healing to, inner child to manifest healing, if you will. So I made a list of these expanders just to give myself proof that, okay, it can be done. Others have done it. If they can do it, I can do it. And to show my inner child, listen, look, other people have done it too. And they were ones where I am at now. So if they could do it, we could do it too. There's a process there. There's proof that it can be done. And that's another way to show your inner child, like, hey, look, it can be done. You and we can do it. So I did that. And right towards the end of December, I ended up getting a message, a DM from a former client of mine that someone who I've remained in contact with and friends with for all these years. And I think the last time I worked with her was in 2019. And so she reached out and like, hey, she's like, how are you doing? What are you doing? What's up? What's going on? And so I kind of shared with her, oh, I've got so much happening. I've done so many things in the last couple of years. I've, became a coach. I went through this coaching certification program, and I also went through an intuition activation program. So now I'm like able to communicate with my spirit guides and, receive messages, and I'm a medium. And so I shared all these things with her and these things that I was doing in my business. And she said, wow, this is really cool, Sonia. Let's talk. Let's make some time to get on the phone and chat. I said, sure, great, let's do it. So we connected, and I shared with her what I was doing, and she says, wow, Sonia. And she has a coaching program. She has a coaching program. She's been a coach for almost 30 years, a coach and a therapist. And she has a coaching certification program that she's been running for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And she said to me, I have this coaching certification program, and I would really love it if you would join me and help me with it, help me run it. And, and so she kind of went through the specifics of what it would require, and, where things would be at, and so on and so forth. And when I hung up with her, I tell you, I did a happy dance because I pulled out. Number one, the opportunity sounded so exciting. Number two, she was one of those people on my expanders list. She was one of those people that I was showing my inner child, look, she's doing something similar to what I'd like to do. So if she did it, I could do it. So the fact that my expander, gave me a call and talked to me about this opportunity, and it was so exciting. It was such an exciting opportunity. I could feel it in my solar plexus, and I'm a manifesting generator in human design. So for me, it's like filling in the solar plexus, and it just felt like a hell yes to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, but this doesn't look like one-on-one coaching. This doesn't look like what I was thinking I was going to look like. The income had a potential to meet what I was trying to accomplish in terms of the income increase. And so then I thought, you know what, let me pull out the list of my whys and the list of how I want to feel. And I went down that list and I was like, oh my gosh, this opportunity fulfills everything on the how I want to feel. And it fulfills like everything in my why. And it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. But that's okay. I let go of that. And so I, I still kind of doubted myself because it didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. So I sat in meditation, called in my spirit guides, and I checked in with them, and they're like, yes, girl, yes, you created this. Of course, you need to work with her. Of course, this is the opportunity you're calling in. Do it. You're going to coach. You're not going to coach one on one, but you're going to coach. And then I thought, huh. So the way that this ends up working out is I'm working with this client and she has a coaching certification program and she teaches them how to coach. And I teach them how to run their business. So I teach them the business side of things. But not only do I teach the business side of things, I also teach them how to work more in the feminine when they're working with this, when they're running their business. I've also taught them how to call in their spirit guides and have their spirit guides help them create their marketing and promotional plans. I've also had them talk to them about, the power of now and how to start their mornings. So I am coaching. It's just happening a little bit different than how I thought it was going to happen. And the response that I'm getting from them has been so beautiful and so heartwarming. And they send me private messages where they're saying, wow, this really resonated with me. And this made so much sense. And you simplify things so nicely that it makes it easy to understand. But that's me. I'm a manifesting generator. That's my superpower. My superpower is to simplify things, to make things simple, to get from A to Z. As manifesting generators, we like shortcuts. We make things, if there is a piece of that puzzle that doesn't need to be there to get to Z, I'm going to take it out. That's what we do as manifesting generators. And that's what I've been doing in this coaching program. So it looks a little bit different than how I imagined it was going to look like, but it fulfills everything in my why and my how I want to feel. So it was a no-brainer. I joined her and I'm so happily working with her right now. And it really fulfilled my income goals because in working with her a significant amount of time, it allowed me to restructure my business and the other clients that I'm working with and let go of the clients that were at a lower paying rate and only keep all the clients that I have it currently at the same rate. And by doing that, it increased my income, not just by 33%, but actually closer to 50%. And that is the magic. That happened. I started working on that manifestation by the end of November 2023. And by the end of December, my client and I were in talks. We solidified everything in January and I started working with her in February. And then what happened? What happened is that these are the holidays. So during the holidays, I had a few clients give me bonuses. That bonus paid for the flight for that trip that I wanted to take. So I got my flight for free. And then when we ended up going on the trip, it was a girls' trip with my mom, my sister, and her sister, her mother-in-law, and myself. We got an Airbnb. And when we split it up, my portion of it was $450 for the week. And I was manifesting getting the Airbnb for under 500. And then because I had manifested a higher income, I had spending money for this trip. that I didn't have to pull from like savings or put it on a credit card. So that manifestation came through. So the higher income came through, the trip came through, and then in June, when rent increase happens, I did not receive a rent increase. And here we are in September, didn't receive a rent increase, and he's actually doing work to the house. He's changed up the roof, he's trimmed the trees. So he's doing things to make it look better, which was a part of it. I said, okay, I want to manifest no increase in rent. So if he were to increase, I was going to plan on looking for something else at the same rent or below. And I wanted certain things to be differently, in this house. And so that manifestation came through because he did not increase my rent and he's making some improvements to the house. So all three of those, the big and semi big manifestations came through, plus a ton of other little things that happen here and there that just kind of manifest and show up for me. So those were the three intentional manifestations that I was bringing in. I had a bunch of other little manifestations in there, like cheap or not. I shouldn't call it cheap, like little manifestations. Like I wanted to like manifest a great pair of jeans, and I found like the most fabulous jeans that I absolutely love, and just little things like that, right? So this is just an example of how I brought it to life, and then how it all clicked for me of like, oh my gosh, how beautiful is this that in doing this inner child work and healing that inner child work and removing those blocks one layer at a time. This is what I mean in my business when I talk about peeling back the layers. It's removing each one of these blocks one at a time and constantly working on it. Let me tell you, there's always more layers. There's always more layers to keep working on. And then when we do that, our inner spark shines. And then we're able to call in those things and show up in a different frequency. So I encourage you to try this with a big manifestation and two smaller manifestations at the same time. To manifestation hack, or what did I call it earlier? Oh, manifestation stack. To manifestation stack. Go through the steps and do the inner child work. Do it several times a week. Try it for a month and see what happens. Come back and let me know how it went. Now, if you want to be coached to this, I have a 6-week program to help you do this, to help you do this manifestation work. If you're ready for that, go for it, try it on your own, see how it works. But if you really want to dive deep and want to have some guidance through that process, I have had firsthand experience in doing it myself, and I've had experience in helping my clients do it as well. So if you're ready for that, DM me on Instagram at Modern Latina in Midlife, or email me at sonia@sonia-flores.com if you want to explore if this is right for you. And if you're just curious about what your inner child needs and want to ease your way into inner child work, I have a quiz on my website called What Does Your Inner Child Need? You can take it in 2 minutes, and it will help you identify what your inner child needs and provides practical tips to help you start healing your inner child to feel more fulfilled, joyful, and as your true self. Thank you so much for being here. Hasta la próxima.